All rise for the President and judges of the Caribbean Court of Justice, the Chief Justice of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Chancellor of the Judiciary of the Chief Justice of the Chancellor of the Judiciary of the Chief Justice of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Chief Justice of the Commonwealth of Bahamas, and the Chief Justice of Barbados.
Senator the Honourable John Jeremy, SC, Attorney General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. The Honourable Sean Sobers, Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. Dr. Carla Barnett, Secretary General of CARICOM. His Excellency Peter Cavendish, Ambassador of the European Union. Dr. Akimo Amizawa, Consul General of Japan. Mr. Diego Calatayud, Deputy Head of Mission and Charge d'Affaires, Spain. Honorable Justices of Appeal and Judges of the High Court. Mr. Randall Karim, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs and Head of the Foreign Service. Judges of the Superior Courts of Record. Former Judges of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Former Justices of Appeal, former judges of the High Court, and former judges of other international courts. Members of the Regional Judicial and Legal Services Commission, and trustees of the CCJ Trust Fund. Former commissioners of the RGLSC and former trustees of the CCJ Trust Fund. Members of academia. Presidents and members of regional bar and law associations. Staff of the Caribbean Court of Justice and the Regional Judicial and Legal Services Commission, specially invited guests, members of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Caribbean Court of Justice. This ceremonial sitting is convened on the occasion of the retirement of the third President of the Court, the Honourable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders. The members of the bench are the Honourable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President. The Honourable Mr. Justice Winston Anderson, President-designate and Presiding Judge. The Honourable Madam Justice Rajnauth-Lee. The Honourable Mr. Justice Dennis Barrow. The Honourable Madam Justice Chantal Anoniru. The Honourable Mr. Justice Chile Eboe-Osuji. The Honourable Mr. Justice Ivor Archie, Chief Justice of Trinidad and Tobago. The Honourable Madam Justice Yonette Cummings Edwards, Chancellor of the Judiciary of Guyana. The Honourable Madam Justice Roxanne George, Chief Justice of Guyana. The Honourable Mr. Justice Ian Winder, Chief Justice of the Bahamas. The Honourable Mr. Justice Leslie Haynes, Chief Justice of Barbados.
President, good morning to you all.
My God.
No. A pleasant good morning to you all. With protocols having been so perfectly established by our Registrar and Chief Marshal, it simply remains for me, on behalf of the judges, management, and staff of the Caribbean Court of Justice, to welcome each and every one of you here this morning to this special sitting of the court. A warm welcome to the family, friends, and colleagues of President Saunders, especially those who made the effort to travel to attend this occasion. A very special welcome to Dr. Carla Barnett, CBE Secretary General of CARICOM, who has traveled from Guyana to attend this morning. Thank you. To my fellow judges sitting with us today from Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, the Bahamas, and Barbados, thank you for your effort and welcome. Evidently, we have a long bench. I'd say a long and a deep bench. This morning, we honor and celebrate the journey and achievements of a genuinely consequential Caribbean jurist. It is truly poignant that we have gathered together today in the same place where he took his oath of office to serve as a judge of the CCJ. And now we return to honor the close of a remarkable chapter in his service to the court. From his beginnings on the island of St. Vincent to the presidency of the region's apex court, my brother and colleague, the Honourable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, has provided this region with 48 years of substantial and impactful legal service. Through his work, he has shown an unwavering commitment to justice, promoted the rule of law, and championed judicial reform and education, while remaining deeply committed to the intellectual and legal growth of the Caribbean people. It is my honor and privilege to pay tribute to a true gentleman whose time on the bench continues to shape a legacy that will endure for years to come. President Saunders' journey began in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a small gem within our Caribbean community. Along with our brother, Justice Barrow, he was among the third cohort of students at the Faculty of Law of the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus. He excelled, of course, completing his studies with honors and with a passion for Caribbean regionalism in 1975. In 1977, he returned to St. Vincent and the Grenadines and worked as a barrister and solicitor in private practice. A transition to the bench came in 1996, which signaled the start of a long and illustrious career in the judiciary. After being appointed as an acting judge of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in 1996, he was confirmed as a High Court judge in 1997 and elevated to Justice of Appeal in 2003. By the time he was selected to be part of the bench of the newly created CCJ 2 years later, he had been elevated to the office of Chief Justice Acting. His tenure at the ECSC, while known for landmark judgments, was also the beginning stage of a long passion for and an active involvement in judicial education and reform, a passion which is evident to this day. Justice Saunders promoted various judicial education efforts at the ECSC, chaired the committee established to introduce court-connected mediation, and led the charge of developing that court's judicial code of ethics. When he joined that inaugural bench of the CCJ in 2005, Justice Saunders blended in seamlessly with other judicial stalwarts. Alongside the late President Michael de la Bastide, the late Justice Duke Pollard, the late Justice Desiree Bernard, the late Justice Jacob Wit, Justice Ralston Nelson, and Justice David Hayton, Justice Saunders was instrumental in shaping the foundation of the CCJ, crafting the first procedural rules and hearing the first matters in the appellate and original jurisdictions. I can only imagine the enormity of the responsibility that this entire bench felt at that time. It was during these first few years that he co-authored the leading opinion in Joseph and Boyce against the Attorney General with President de la Bastide, a case of lasting impact within the region and the Commonwealth. I met Justice Saunders 5 years later when I joined the court in 2010. I was immediately impressed with his clarity of thought and ability to order legal arguments in convincing support of his positions. Though persuaded of his positions, I always admired his willingness to see and give credit to the other side of the argument. When in July 2018, he was appointed president of the CCJ, I recall it being an occasion of extreme pride. The first graduate of the Caribbean legal education system to achieve the office of president of the CCJ, the highest judicial office in the Caribbean. His elevation did much to demonstrate to the region and the world confidence in the graduates of our legal education system to make our own jurisprudence. Over the past 7 years, the court has made great strides under his leadership. After leading the development of the court's first strategic plan in 2012, it was only natural that he would be actively involved in creating the court's second strategic plan for 2019 to 2024. His role as chair of the planning committee accordingly meant close oversight over the various initiatives over the period, and driven by the court's vision to be a model of judicial excellence. He was always in the trenches with the staff, injecting his expertise and hard work to realize this vision. His leadership propelled the court on its path to excellence, such that in 2023, the CCJ became the first court in the region to be accepted into the International Consortium of Court Excellence. And I recall the president indicating that he would definitely be having a glass of wine to mark that occasion. Under his forward-thinking approach to court administration, the CCJ has been exemplary in strengthening its accountability and transparency and in enhancing access to justice. For example, on his initiative or with his support, the CCJ implemented a harassment policy, a revised judicial code of conduct accompanied by judicial disciplinary regulations, a policy to improve access to justice for persons with disabilities, and an anonymization protocol for case proceedings relating to sensitive matters. The reality is that under President Saunders' leadership, the CCJ has remained a beacon for judiciaries across the region and internationally. As president, he has faced his share of obstacles. For example, in 2020, when the world was impacted by the ravages of COVID-19, President Saunders kept the CCJ ship steady. The court was able to function effectively when many courts across the world were caught off guard. Virtual hearings continued without interruption. There was no disruption in the operations or filings of cases before the court. The court's judgments continued to be well-reasoned, of high quality, withstanding scrutiny. The administration of justice was therefore not compromised during those years, and many courts adopted the CCJ model to craft their own business continuity strategies. Caribbean jurisprudence has been greatly enriched and has benefited immensely from President Saunders' contributions. His judgments are written with clarity and reason and appeal to the legally trained mind, but which the ordinary man and woman in the street can also understand and appreciate. Over the course of his 20-year tenure at the CCJ, President Saunders has authored 83 opinions, 43 of which were sole leading opinions and 18 which were joint leading opinions. In cases concerning constitutional and human rights issues, his opinions reflect a commitment to protecting human rights, the importance of procedural propriety, and examination of redress for constitutional wrongs. His dissent in Lucas against Chief Education Officer enhanced the discussion of the right to protection of the law, emphasizing its grounding in the concept of fairness and the rule of law. This opinion would provide context for the expansive notion of the right to protection of the law, later developed in the case of Maya Leaders Alliance against the Attorney General of Belize. This forward-looking view of the law, coupled with an appreciation of Caribbean historical precedents and present-day social realities, resulted in a distinctive approach to constitutional interpretation, particularly with respect to the savings law clauses in Commonwealth Caribbean constitutions. The idea that the protection of fundamental human rights and advancement of the rule of law must take precedence over the savings law clauses, which preserve colonial laws, is one which President Saunders has continuously advocated. In authoring the court's seminal ruling in McEwen against Attorney General of Guyana, he declared that the provision in the Colonial Summary Jurisdiction Offences Act of Guyana prohibiting cross-dressing was unconstitutional and was not preserved by the Savings Law Clause. The opening words of his opinion in McEwen were meant to lay the foundation for his legal reasoning, but arguably went further to exhibit mastery of English, literature, and perhaps even of philosophy. He said, and I quote, "Difference is as natural as breathing. Infinite varieties exist of everything under the sun. Civilized society has a duty to accommodate suitably differences among human beings. Only in this manner can we give due respect to everyone's humanity. No one should have his or her dignity trampled upon or human rights denied merely on account of a difference." End quote. In his opinion in McEwen, President Saunders emphasized that in a civilized society, there is a duty to accommodate differences among individuals, ensuring respect for everyone's humanity. He noted that the impugned law disproportionately exposed members of the LGBTI community to discrimination and harassment, and restated the court's duty to protect those marginalized in society and to uphold the right to protection of the law of every member of the society. It is essential to highlight President Saunders' impact in the area of judicial education and reform. As mentioned earlier, his time at the ECSC seemed to have ignited this passion, which grew year after year. And with an instinctive ability to educate and mentor, President Saunders has had a lasting influence on judicial officers across the region and internationally. In 2009, he, along with judicial officers across the region, established the Caribbean Association of Judicial Officers, CAJO. As chair of CAJO from 2009 to 2019, his leadership shaped CAJO, laying the groundwork for the well-respected and mighty force in regional judicial education and reform that the association is today. I must mention his active role in the Commonwealth Judicial Education Institute, CJEI, which had him leading sessions for judges from across various Commonwealth countries. He is still a valuable resource to the Institute. And I must mention in passing that he, together with Justice Wit and Master Christian Morris Allen, was instrumental in establishing what is now the CCJ Academy for Law. This passion for teaching does not only extend to judicial education. He possesses an easy rapport in a teaching role and a belief that the next generation of legal practitioners are to be mentored. He is willing to deliver lectures and presentations at conferences or to students at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels, and to engage with law students, whether they be on court tours or in the lecture halls at law school. His contributions in this area have always been sought after, and I'm sure will continue. Before I close, I must state that this tribute cannot do full justice to Justice Saunders' many accomplishments or the depth of his character. I could not possibly capture the full magnitude of the contributions of someone who has given some 50 years of his life to Caribbean jurisprudence, culminating in the Caribbean Court of Justice. As to the latter, I can say that he is beloved and respected by his judges and by the staff in his chambers, in the court, and in the commission. Easygoing, approachable, and affable, he is a required presence at every court event. Carnival Lime, end of year Lime, and everything in between. President Saunders, as your colleague, I thank you for the years of steadfast guidance and support you have given to me in my capacity both as judge of the court and as chair of the CCJ Academy for Law. I have enjoyed the privilege of working alongside you for the past 15 years. As your successor, I recognize and value what you have built over the past 7 years, and I am mindful of the lasting impact of your leadership. On behalf of the judges, management, and staff of the court, and on behalf of a grateful nation, we thank you for the dedication, commitment, and inevitable sacrifices you have made in captaining the CCJ team and your tireless advocacy for the CCJ to be the region's choice for advancing our jurisprudence. I must also publicly express our gratitude to your dear wife, Mrs. Marilyn Saunders, and to your family who have supported you along the way. I am certain that they are looking forward to sharing more time with you and you with them. So, President Saunders, as we today reflect on your distinguished career, I join my colleagues in doing so with immense gratitude, pride, and admiration. Thank you once again for your service. We treasure the heritage bequeathed to us by that inaugural bench, of which, sadly, you are the last representative on active duty. I wish you good health, joy, and well-deserved rest as you begin this new chapter of retirement. We look forward to what you will continue to offer in the future. Thank you very much, President.
President, is the mic working? Is it working now?
Yes.
Thank you. The off is on. Thank you. President, distinguished colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all. It is both a privilege and a solemn honor to pay tribute to the Honourable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, whose retirement as President of the Caribbean Court of Justice marks the culmination of a distinguished judicial career that has profoundly shaped Caribbean jurisprudence. President Saunders has been a beacon of intellectual brilliance, a jurist of deep insight, unwavering integrity, and profound respect for the rule of law. I first met Justice Saunders, as he then was, soon after his appointment to the CCJ. It was September 2006. We were both attending the 2006 conference of the Commonwealth Magistrates and Judges Association in Toronto, Canada. Justice Saunders participated in a panel discussion, which, as you would imagine, ultimately led to an exchange about the significance of the CCJ as an indigenous Caribbean institution and its comparison with the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. President, we could not have imagined that 20 years later, even as the CCJ commemorates its 20th anniversary, and as we pause to bid you farewell, that we would still be discussing these issues. Nevertheless, let's return to September 2006. During the question time and answer time of the panel discussion, I moved to the microphone to express my support for the CCJ. I knew very little of this new Caribbean institution, except that I had been present here at Queen's Hall on the 16th of April 2005, when the inaugural bench of the CCJ took their oaths. Witnessing that moment, especially seeing that sole woman judge, the late Justice Desiree Bernard, take her oath, filled me with immense pride as a Caribbean woman. And so I asked this question at the microphone: what could I, a High Court judge from Trinidad and Tobago, do to support the CCJ? Justice Saunders' response surprised me. It wasn't that I should consider writing about the significance of the court as a Caribbean institution, although that would have been fine. It wasn't that I should cite CCJ cases in my judgment. I would have done that too. Justice Saunders' answer was simple yet profound. If you wish to support the CCJ, be the best High Court judge you can be. I have never forgotten those words. Now, in 2025, we reflect on President Saunders' remarkable leadership. Under his stewardship, the court has been strengthened in its dual role, both as the final appellate court of 5 Caribbean jurisdictions and as the guardian of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas in its original jurisdiction. His judgments in landmark cases have clarified complex legal issues, reinforced the rule of law, and advanced the rights of Caribbean peoples. President Saunders' contribution to the development of Caribbean constitutional law and human rights jurisprudence stand out. Few will forget the seminal judgment in AG and others against Joseph and Boyce, already mentioned by my brother, Justice Anderson. and he co-authored this with the late President de Lavastide. Other notable judgments, Bisram, McEwen, Pompey, Ram, to mention just a few, will continue to be cited and studied. I will personally cherish the judgments we authored together. Manzanero, which underscored the importance of fairness in judge-alone trials, and Sandy Lane, 2002, which explored the principle of mutual trust and confidence in employment law. Yet beyond his legal acumen, it is President Saunders' character that has left the deepest impression. His unwavering integrity and profound sense of justice has earned him the admiration of his Caribbean colleagues. He has been a steadfast advocate for judicial independence and ethical governance, always mindful of the immense responsibility that comes with judicial office. His fairness, humility, and impartiality have set a standard to which all of us on the CCJ bench aspire. Equally remarkable, though, is his compassion. President Saunders has never lost sight of the human dimension of the law, whether mentoring young jurists through the Caribbean Association of Judicial Officers, CAJO, or engaging with civil society, or addressing the concerns of the most vulnerable, such as persons with disabilities or survivors of sexual violence. He has always demonstrated empathy and respect. His warmth, accessibility, and deep concern for the well-being of others have left a lasting impression on me. As we bid farewell to our President in his official capacity, we do so with immense gratitude for his service and deep respect for the legacy he leaves behind. His contributions have not only strengthened the court, but have advanced the cause of justice throughout the Caribbean. President, may your dear wife Marilyn, your sons and their wives enjoy more of your time. And may you spend your days loving up that gorgeous grandbaby. May this next chapter be filled with new adventures and the love of family. And on behalf of all of us, Prez, thank you very much.
Brother President, it was 50 years ago that we completed our law degree. The span of your achievements in that span of years has been quietly remarkable. You have moved from the ranks of campus socialism to the benches of judicial traditionalism, although you have managed to avoid conservatism. Your successes as a judge are widely known and celebrated. You have delivered some outstanding judgments. You have developed and improved the content and the practice of law in the Caribbean. You have led in court administration and judicial performance. You are known and regarded internationally. As you move on into what is called retirement, we take pleasure in seeing you in a new capacity for the immediate future. It is a joy to witness this latest engagement, namely your dedication to being the best of doting grandfathers. Young Thomas will keep you young. Recently, 2 members of our graduating class met up in Jamaica after many years of not seeing each other, and naturally, among other things, the roll was called. Those who have gone ahead were remembered fondly. And the reminiscing settled between them with this nugget. We who remain, they resolved, must show gratitude that our comrades have satisfied the statistical imperative. By comprising the numbers on the negative side of average life expectancy, they have left a place for you on the positive side of the average. Therefore, dear President, the wish for you on your retirement is a mix between admonition and exhortation from our waggish brothers, that as a bequest from your predecessors, and God willing, you should continue a full and active life and live on to a ripe old age. Thank you.
Calm, collected, composed. Yes, Adrian is all of these and much more. Compassionate, caring, concerned. Yes, and still so much more. Competent, committed to excellence, capable of innovation and creativity and of producing compelling Caribbean jurisprudence. Again, yes, and even more. Words will never fully capture the who, what, and why of Adrian as I have come to know him as a president of the CCJ, a judge of the CCJ, a judicial educator, and most of all, an inspiring and supportive mentor. Thank you, Adrian, for being you, for the courage of your integrity and convictions, forged in the fires of discipline and dedication to better people and institutions and to create a relevant, robust, and reliable Caribbean Court of Justice and Caribbean jurisprudence. We all are individually, regionally, and internationally the beneficiaries of your truly enlightened leadership and your love for the growth and development of things Caribbean. Indeed, for all things related to the law and the administration of justice, and for the improvement of the lives of all persons, regardless of ascribed differences or placements. If anything, your soft spot, Adrian, is for those made marginalized and who have been unfairly placed at the fringes. Hence, the areas of your interest and arduous attentiveness. Your commitment to judicial reform and your understanding that judicial education is integral to successful and sustainable reform initiatives have meant that so much of what you have implemented has flourished and transformed persons and institutions. The seeds that you have planted are many. All are born out of the depths of your insatiable benevolence and offered for the greater good. Some have already borne fruit, fulsome and nourishing. Some of you have only been able to water and fertilize, and others will reap and enjoy. One seed that I wish to muse about is your passion for judicial education. In Greek mythology, the 9 Muses, daughters of Zeus, presided over the arts and sciences. In contemporary times, a muse describes a person who is a source of inspiration and of creativity. Anansi may be our closest Caribbean folklore counterpart, the clever storyteller who embodies and inspires wisdom and the power of narrative, the teacher and transmitter of wisdom. Maybe it is that a Caribbean muse in Anansi-like form inhabits you, Adrian. Your enthusiasm for judicial education is renowned. You became a fellow of the Commonwealth Judicial Education Institute, CJEI, in 1998, chair of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court's Judicial Education Institute, ECSCJEI, in 2001, and a founding member and chair of the Caribbean Association of Judicial Officers, the CAJO, at its inception in 2009, and served as such for a decade until 2019. What a legacy. In between all of this, you became a vice president of the CJEI, the Commonwealth Judicial Education Institute, and a course director of its flagship University of Dalhousie-based intensive study program, the ISP. Indeed, and so characteristic of your magnanimity, in 2019 you handed over to me both the chair of CAJO and directorship of the CJEI's ISP. The CAJO offers its deepest appreciation to you and wishes for you every good both now and in the future, even as you remain an integral part of the CAJO. And the CJEI, the same. You have shaped many judicial careers and changed many things about how we see and do justice here in the Caribbean and elsewhere. Thank you, Adrian. For me, my path as a judge and as a judicial educator, they have been illuminated by your light. If I had to choose one word to describe you, above all else, I would choose integrity. It is no surprise that you serve on the advisory board of the Global Judicial Integrity Network of the UNODC. In all that you do, there is a natural aversion to duplicity and an innate capacity to live and act in and out of integrity. In you, there's an easy alignment of what you hold dear as core values, what you say and what you do, and in how you come into relationship with all others. This is a rare thing. Yet in you, its transparency is a thing of beauty to behold and to experience. Indeed, your integrity shows up in your jurisprudence just as it does everywhere else. Your most oft-quoted judicial statement may just about be, and I quote, "Difference is as natural as breathing, infinite varieties exist of everything under the sun," McEwan. It reveals a deep jurisprudential ideology that runs like living water throughout the corpus of your work and a philosophical underpinning that informs your professional life. McEwan was not just about McEwan and others, or about justice, even about jurisprudence. Yes, those things are important and were very important for you in writing that opinion. But in my viewing of you, your judgment in McEwan is an expression of who, what, and why you are, shaped by your life experiences and your deep reflections on the law and its intersections with society, informed by experiential insights into what human rights mean and why they matter, all manifesting in your writing. McEwan is thus an expression of your integrity in action on display for all to see. I think it is worth sharing what you wrote in your opening paragraph. Difference is as natural as breathing, Infinite varieties exist of everything under the sun. Civilized society has a duty to accommodate suitably differences among human beings. Only in this manner can we give due respect to everyone's humanity. No one should have his or her dignity trampled upon or human rights denied merely on account of a difference. It is these simple verities on which this case is premised. End of quote. To me, this embodies who you are and how you live. We may in consequence say of you, it is these simple verities on which his life is premised. Leaders of true integrity are trusted because they are experienced as trustworthy. Great leaders lead through humility, understanding, and love. They practice inclusivity, respect, courtesy, and compassion. They build up and empower others, consequence of true confidence and self-esteem, the fruit of which is a spontaneous generosity of spirit. They are naturally good, kind, and magnanimous. And persons willingly choose to be with, work with, and support them. Adrian, you are such a leader and such a person. We give thanks. Finally, I pay tribute to your dignity, not just as a dignified person and professional, as no doubt you are, but as a core human value. Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, states, and I quote, "All humans are born free and equal in dignity and rights." This has been your professional and personal raison d'etre. We have all been the beneficiaries. May your retirement be filled with a fair measure of reflection, renewal, and the quiet joy of knowing that your legacy lives on in people, places, and principles in us. Even as I am sure that the universe already has plans for things to be done by you. Though this chapter closes, the story continues, enriched by all you have shared and inspired, but mostly by who you are. We wish you well, Adrian, now and always. And if I can say to you personally, until another time, with the deepest appreciation and with heartfelt gratitude, thank you.
Like my sister, Justice Rajnauth-Lee, I met Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders nearly 20 years ago. In 2006, Justice Saunders visited the University of the West Indies Cave Faculty of Law, at which I was then a lecturer in public international law. Little did I know how our paths would intersect years later when I would appear before the CCJ as counsel for CARICOM in original jurisdiction cases and serve as a judge of the court under his leadership. Justice Saunders' judgments addressing multiple areas of domestic law are renowned, particularly those concerning constitutional law and human rights. But I wish to also pay tribute to his contribution to the development of Caribbean community law. As a member of the CCJ's inaugural bench, President Saunders has sat on all the cases brought in the court's original jurisdiction, and thereby helped to shape a critical source of community law, the judgments of the CCJ, which interpret and apply the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. During his tenure, Justice Saunders also supported initiatives to raise the awareness of Caribbean community law among the judiciary, lawyers, law students, and other stakeholders in the region. As president, he recognized the importance of having expertise on community law, international law, and international trade law on the bench of the CCJ. Although my time serving with President Saunders on the court has been brief, it has been tremendously consequential and will leave a lasting impression. With his sound understanding of the critical role of an apex court, sharp intellect, erudition, promotion of mutual respect among colleagues, and commitment to just outcomes, President Saunders masterfully led the adjudicatory work of the court. As president, his effective administration of the CCJ has prioritized court excellence, not as a lofty ideal, but in practical, measurable ways that can be and have been actualized, ensuring the high standard of service that the people of the community deserve. His leadership as an administrator has also been successful because of its people-centeredness and his preparedness to explore and facilitate arrangements that allow staff to give of their best to the court and their families. Justice Saunders' commitment to the CCJ's excellence is consistent with his uncompromising and unwavering belief in the capacity and potential of our region and its peoples. He has tirelessly used his platform to remind us of how transformative and consequential our decision was to create our Caribbean Court of Justice, and of the need for us to have confidence in the wisdom of that choice. His calls for us to dispel uncertainty of self remind us of the importance of self-belief and of what we can achieve through our vision, intellect, and hard work. President Saunders, I salute you and thank you for your life of service to our Caribbean community. Your sound judgment and leadership during the first 2 decades of the CCJ's existence have helped to lay a solid foundation on which we will build. Adrian, on a personal note, I thank you for the confidence you reposed in me and for your warmth, guidance, and generosity during this first year of my tenure with the court. Keith and I wish you fulfillment in this next phase, involving even more quality time with your loved ones and particularly treasured moments as a grandfather. Walk good, my brother.
My dear President Saunders, from a distance before I joined the court, I always marveled at how well you wore that rare aura that combines warmth, dignity, integrity, superior intellect, good humor, all packaged in the physique of a Wendy's bowler during the period when they reigned as the insuperable, or shall we say, insufferable hegemons of the cricket world. But having worked here in this short period, I'm only happy to confirm that that distant impression is not just an impression, but it only doesn't even scratch the surface of the bundle of impressive qualities that is all your own. But we know that it is in the nature of things that all human journeys must come to an end. And so it is yours at the CCJ after a long and illustrious trek. But we know that as you leave the court will not leave you, nor will we, your colleagues. Now, it has been said that retirement will give you more time to spend with your family, your wife, lovely wife, children and grandchildren. Yes, there is certainly that. But speaking from my experience, shared experience of someone who steps down from an international court, not out of boredom or out of exhaustion, but because of the statutory imperatives of limited tenure, I know that there's a lot of unspent fuel in your tank. And I look forward to all the bushfires of good sense you will light along the way with all that unspent energy. So, my friend, Godspeed. Thank you.
Although the protocols have been established, please permit me to acknowledge our celebrant, as well as President-designate Anderson, and thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this momentous occasion. I would simply say good morning and refer to the rest of you as esteemed colleagues and distinguished members of the judiciary, friends, and honored guests. Today we gather to celebrate a remarkable chapter in the life of Caribbean justice as the Honourable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, concludes his tenure, a milestone that signifies far more than the close of a judicial career. Moments like these cause us to reflect on the privilege of service, the weight of legacy, and the extraordinary impact that one individual can have on a region. As we were assembling to process into court, it struck me that there was something appropriate, having regard to Adrian's well-known love of cricket, that there are 11 of us seated on the bench today. I come in the lower middle order, or perhaps the beginning of the tail, so my role is relegated to that of a brief cameo, most of the runs having been scored and most of what needs to be said having been said. But from my personal perspective, I would say that President Saunders is more than just a jurist. He is, in every sense of the word, a steward of justice, of principle, and of people. From the moment I first met him, I was struck not only by his legal mind, but the genuine warmth that he brings into every room or encounter. He never stands apart from the people he leads. Instead, he walks side by side with them. That is a rare quality, especially in our profession. His judicial insight and competence are, of course, well known. We have seen it demonstrated time and again in decisions that have helped define Caribbean jurisprudence. He began shaping regional jurisprudence even before his appointment to the CCJ. For example, in his succinct judgment in Bank of Bermuda versus Pentium and Langley, he provided clear guidance on the approach to the interpretation of the CPR with respect to the grant of summary judgment, as well as the respective responsibilities in the banker-customer relationship. Despite its brevity, it was important to the world of commerce. You have, of course, already been referred to some of his solely authored legal opinions. But the practice of issuing joint judgments in the CCJ sometimes obscures the scope of the intellectual contribution of individual judges. It is probably not surprising that, whether in dissent or otherwise, he found himself co-authoring pivotal judgments with another intellectual giant, deceased President de Labastide. Among the many notable contributions, we find Florencio Marin and Jose Coye versus Attorney General of Belize, a rare dissent in which the court, or the President Saunders, reinforced the importance of accountability and integrity in the exercise of public power. There was the compelling joint judgment in Joseph and Boyce, to which we have already been referred, which acknowledged the evolving jurisprudence and examined the justiciability of unincorporated international treaties. It remains a landmark in our region's human rights discourse. Further, in the Maya Leaders Alliance case, they gave voice to indigenous communities and underscored the judiciary's role in protecting cultural and land rights and the environment, often neglected by the state. These are just a few of his many significant contributions. They are not merely rulings, they are statements of principle rooted in the law and guided by conscience and a deep understanding of our region's social, cultural, and historical context. Judging, after all, is not something that we do in vacuum. However, I dare say that what sets President Saunders apart is not merely the quality of his jurisprudence, but the quality of his character. His humility and understated demeanor leaves many unaware of his formidable intellect, quiet strength, and commitment to inclusivity and social justice. He does not raise his voice, but if provoked, the steel emerges, as in the recent public rebuke of a UK law lord who had the temerity, if only by inference, to question the objectivity of the CCJ. I have had the pleasure of knowing and working with him in regional projects, in academic conferences, in the Conference of Heads of Regional Judiciaries, and through the Judicial Education Institute of Trinidad and Tobago, CAJO, and the Commonwealth Judicial Education Institute, among other organizations. He is always willing to share his wisdom and experiences. He is respectful of others' opinions, even when he clearly does not agree. As an academic and mentor, he has helped to shape legal minds throughout the Caribbean, especially through his long-standing work with the Faculty of Law and his continuing association with the CCJ Academy for Law. He has never lost sight of the importance of continuing education in deepening the roots of justice. As president of the Judicial Education Institute of Trinidad and Tobago, I can say that we were especially honored by his contribution to our own professional development seminar for judges and judicial officers in 2023. His session on judicial leadership, accountability, and responsibility was a masterful blend of practical insight and personal reflection. In that presentation, President Saunders reminded us that judicial leadership must be intentional and accountable. He urged us to critically examine whether our systems truly serve the public, while highlighting key pillars including governance, court culture, performance, and transparency, all anchored in his core message that leadership is the driving force behind institutional excellence. The feedback we received from our judicial officers was overwhelmingly positive. One judicial officer wrote, and I quote, "President Saunders' natural, unaffected style and his humility make any message he delivers a valuable one," end of quote. It was both deeply informative and genuinely transformative, and his message affirmed that true leadership flows from integrity and compassion rather than from title. In all of this, I see the hallmark of President Saunders' career as quiet excellence paired with deep humility. He has never pursued praise or prominence, yet his work has guided countless others. Without seeking acclaim, he has earned a legacy that speaks for itself. Under his leadership, the Caribbean Court of Justice has continued to transcend its initial mandate and to flourish. It remains a flagship example of regional integration and legal excellence, respected across jurisdictions worldwide, and trusted by those who believe in the promise of Caribbean unity and justice. That is no coincidence. It stems from the clarity of his values and vision, his unwavering belief in Caribbean justice, and his willingness to lead by example. President Saunders, on behalf of the Judiciary of Trinidad and Tobago, and on my own personal behalf, I thank you for your service and for the manner in which you have served, with humility, with brilliance, and with heart. Your chapter as president of the CCJ may be closing, but the pages you have written will continue to guide this region for years to come. May the next chapter in your life bring you continued fulfillment, rest, reflection, and the joy of knowing that you have made a profound difference. Thank you, sir, and farewell for now.
President Saunders, distinguished judges, and esteemed audience, it is a great privilege for me, and indeed an honor, on behalf of the Judiciary of Guyana and on my own behalf, to offer heartfelt sentiments and remarks at this special sitting of the Caribbean Court of Justice to mark the retirement of the President of the Court. It seemed like only yesterday that Justice Saunders, in the year of our Lord 2005, became a part of the inaugural bench of the Caribbean Court of Justice. It seemed like only yesterday that His Honor rose to the pole position of President of the Court. Today, he is the last of the Mohicans of that eminent team of jurists, but the shifting sands of time cannot take away His Honor's nearly 3 decades of service to the Caribbean, inclusive of 2 decades of sterling service to the Caribbean Court of Justice. Justice Saunders' storied career and sterling service have left indelible marks on the Caribbean's sands of time. His sterling contribution to Caribbean jurisprudence, institutional excellence, and judicial reform will be permanently etched in the annals of history. I must express deep gratitude to His Honor for his service to Guyana, particularly exemplified in numerous cases coming from our country, in which he presided and gave rich judicial guidance and settled the law in a number of areas. A number of cases from our jurisdiction adorn the court's website, perhaps outnumbering those of the other jurisdictions which are members of this court. Some of them reference have been made already, but cases on criminal law, electoral law, land law, human rights law, constitutional and administrative law saw a progressive and somewhat liberal elucidation and interpretation of the law. I recall the privilege afforded to me in July 2018 to herald Justice Saunders' ascension to the presidency of the court. And I noted then that apart from being the 3rd president of this august body, He was the first fully Caribbean-trained jurist to be appointed president of the Caribbean Court of Justice. I thought that this fact made him familiar with the culture, the laws, the nuances, the norms, and the mores of the people and the institutions. It was emphasized that he feels the pulse and heartbeat of the people and had the right temperament for the execution of his duties. That view is not a misplaced one, and 7 years later, they are well fortified. He has walked with kings and queens, prime ministers and presidents, and never lost the common touch. He remained cool, calm, and collected. Sir, you have adhered to the biblical edict in the book of Luke, chapter 12 and verse 48, that to whom much is given, much is expected or required. Thus, responsibility and accountability were some of the hallmarks of your tenure. Your judicial acumen, your leadership, your positive attitude, your empathy, your helpful and caring nature, accompanied by grace and humility, are legendary. They exemplify the true measure of the man. Sir, you took the time to come to Guyana, not only for the itinerant sitting of the court, but also to provide mentorship, training, and support to us. I recall before the formation of our Judicial Education Institute that you, along with Justice Barrow, just took the time to inquire about the formation of our Judicial Education Institute. And on the sidelines of that conference, gave guidance on the formation of our institution. The rest is history. Today, as we celebrate the jurists with many years of dedicated service, commitment to Caribbean integration, and dedication to duty, the educator, the mentor, the husband, the father, the grandfather, the brother, the friend, the Caribbean man, we say thank you for your service. We thank Mrs. Marlene Saunders and your family and relatives for sharing you with us. Nobel laureate and the Caribbean poet Sir Derek Walcott wrote in the Odyssey, and I quote, "The future happens no matter how we scream." And so, although bittersweet, we accept the fact that you will be retiring. You have batted well, a full innings, scored highly, and your illustrious service has placed Team CCJ in capable hands of the new captain, Justice Anderson. Wishing you Godspeed and great success in your future endeavors and the next chapter. We thank you so very much, sir, for all that you've done to us. May God richly bless you.
Honourable Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Honourable Justice Winston Anderson, President-designate of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Honourable Judges of the Bench, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and I now crave your indulgence to adopt the protocol so ably established. The opening paragraph of the seminal judgment given by Justice Saunders in McCune and others and the Attorney General of Guyana in 2018, quoted by Justices Anderson and Jamadar, for me, epitomizes the overriding objective of the distinguished jurist we celebrate today. A jurist who has championed access to justice, human rights, and fairness, and demonstrated an abiding commitment to the highest standards of excellence. So it is a distinct honor and privilege to have been invited by the Honourable Justice Winston Anderson to make brief remarks on this very, very special occasion. A calm, reassuring judicial presence With 20 years on the bench of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Guyana's apex court since its inauguration in 2005, Justice Saunders has been a guiding force for Guyana's judiciary, making himself available to attend our judicial conferences and court ceremonies. A respectful, kind, warm, and engaging person, I regard Justice Saunders as a mentor, from whom I have learned so much since 2011, when he welcomed me as a member of the Management Committee of the Caribbean Association of Judicial Officers, CAJU, an organization which he pioneered as its first chair for 10 years, and which has grown into a regional powerhouse of judicial education and camaraderie. His commitment to judicial and legal education regionally and internationally is well known, as he unselfishly shared his vast knowledge and experience. Justice Saunders exudes humility, listening keenly to contributions made in discussions on various legal and social issues, adding profound nuggets of wisdom in these engagements. And of course, we have observed him as he presided in cases, asking probing questions of counsel so that justice can be attained. He leaves an indelible repository of jurisprudence on the legal landscape of the Caribbean, and indeed the Commonwealth, and is a demonstration of why we must not be afraid to embrace our own. As he stated at his swearing in as president of the CCJ, and I quote, "We have no good reason to doubt our ability to grasp full responsibility for interpreting and applying our own laws." And in his remarks at the Norman Manley Law School Distinguished Lecture 2025 last April, he quoted regional cultural icons George Lamming and Bob Marley to remind us that we must emancipate ourselves from the terrors of our mind so that we can develop our orthogonous jurisprudence, applying legal principles grounded in our history and lived reality. Justice Saunders therefore exemplifies Black Stalin's exhortation, which I cannot sing, that we must push one common intention for a better life in the region as the ambition of the Caribbean man, and I add woman and child. I therefore extend heartfelt gratitude, Justice Saunders, for your commitment to our regional project. We are deeply appreciative of your dedication, inspiring us to serve with honesty and integrity in ensuring access to justice and in upholding the rule of law. Adrian always greets me, "Hey Roxanne, how you doing?" He engages warmly with all judicial officers, making us feel comfortable in his company, whether in judicial or fun activities. I thank you and your dear wife, Marlene, for the kind hospitality extended to me. Mrs. Saunders, appreciation is extended to you, your sons Yuri and Yannick, and other family members for caring for and sharing Justice Saunders with us. He means so much to so many of us who have come within his sphere of influence. Justice Saunders, on my own behalf and on behalf of the judiciary of Guyana, I wish you the best of health and God's richest blessings in your retirement. It is my fervent hope, and no doubt the hope of many, that after a period of deserved rest and relaxation from your hectic life, which has included 48 years as a lawyer and judicial officer, that you will again retire as in RETYRE, so that we will continue to benefit from your immense knowledge, experience, and mentorship, so that you can continue to inspire Caribbean judicial officers as well as the peoples of our region. Thank you.
Good morning. I gratefully adopt the protocol list which has so ably been established. But let me begin by expressing my thanks to Justice Anderson for the kind invitation to attend this special sitting and to bring these brief remarks. It is indeed an honor, privilege, and a pleasure to be here today as we gather to pay tribute to a distinguished jurist, a visionary leader, and a steadfast guardian of justice, the Honourable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders. It hardly seems like 7 years ago that I was here in Trinidad to attend another special sitting, on that occasion to celebrate the appointment of the new President Adrian Saunders. His tenure as President of the Caribbean Court of Justice has exceeded the high expectations which was placed on it, a tenure defined by unwavering commitment, intellectual rigor, and a deep sense of duty to the people of our region. Building on the work of his predecessors, Justice Saunders has ensured that the Caribbean Court of Justice remains an institution of judicial excellence, fostering legal certainty and reinforcing fundamental rights and freedoms of the people it serves. Throughout his judicial journey, President Saunders has exemplified the very essence of judicial integrity, wisdom, and unwavering commitment to the principles of justice and the rule of law. The epitome of humility, Justice Saunders is a true servant leader. He leaves an indelible mark on the Caribbean's legal landscape. Under his leadership, the CCJ has strengthened its role as a beacon of judicial independence, ensuring that justice is not only dispensed, but is accessible to all. His contributions to legal scholarship, judicial reform, and the advancement of Caribbean jurisprudence has elevated the court's standing and reinforced its mission as a guardian of our democratic principles. Today we have heard and will hear of the many landmark cases over which Justice Saunders has presided or contributed to, and that have shaped the legal framework of all our nations, not just the states which send their final appeals to the CCJ. You have heard and will hear of his ability to balance the complexities of law with the realities of governance, which has earned him the respect and admiration of colleagues, legal practitioners, and citizens alike. Such excellence is the hallmark of Justice Saunders' extraordinary career since his early days as a judge of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. But beyond his judicial acumen, President Saunders has been a mentor, a guide, and inspiration to many. I readily confess that it is in this role that I will miss his accessible, steady, and wise counsel. President Saunders' passion for legal education and his commitment to nurturing the next generation of jurists will remain a lasting legacy. I first worked with Justice Saunders as a member of the executive of the Caribbean Association of Judicial Officers. The CAJO was born and sculptured in his image, an institution focused on the enhancement of judicial officers all across the region, dedicated to the building and strengthening of judicial systems of the region, and selfless in all that it does, just like Justice Saunders. As he embarks on this new chapter, we express our deepest gratitude for his years of service. We thank him for his unwavering dedication to justice, his leadership in the strengthening of Caribbean legal institutions, and his profound impact on the development of our regional jurisprudence. Justice Saunders has been a treasured friend of the judiciary of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. So Justice Saunders, on my own behalf, on behalf of the judiciary of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, I extend our heartfelt appreciation and best wishes. May your retirement be filled with well-deserved rest, continued intellectual pursuits, and the joy of knowing that your contributions have shaped the future of justice in the Caribbean. Thank you, and may you continue to inspire us all.
Honourable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Honourable Mr. Justice Winston Anderson, President-designate, Honourable Judges, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all. The tributes being delivered and offered today to His Honour, Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, are many. And I, like others who have spoken, have understandably been given a short space of time for my tribute. I am deeply grateful, however, to have been afforded this honor and will do my best to respect the time frame and not yield to the possibility of a voluminous tribute fitting to the stature of this outstanding Caribbean jurist. In preparing and redacting this speech, my memory took me to my first interaction as a relatively recently appointed Queen's Counsel with the then Justice of Appeal Saunders in the island of Grenada. In answer to the court's inquiry as to the length of my oral submission, I gave an estimate of 4 to 5 hours. I was told in a more civil manner that I would be afforded 30 minutes. Indeed, the actual words as I remember them were, Mr. Haynes, we have 30 minutes for you. Needless to say, this caused me to bring my skills of advocacy honed over decades into effect. After this memorable experience, I became aware in conversations with colleagues across the region that his honor as a judge of the High Court was known and respected for exhibiting the highest standards of judicial presence and calmly demanding professionalism from the attorneys who came before him. Having entered the law faculty at Cave Hill in 1975, just as his honor would have left Cave Hill to continue his legal education elsewhere, I did not myself know him as a student, but I've heard from those who entered the faculty before me of a young slim man from St. Vincent with a large afro, with distinct thoughts of a development of a Caribbean society. As a judge in the Court of Appeal of the OECS, his judgments were bold and on the cutting edge of legal thinking at the time. Some of those judgments have now become seminal and bear testimony to his quality of leading the way, albeit in a quiet and grounded manner. It was therefore no surprise that he ascended to the Caribbean Court of Justice in its inaugural phase and continued in that institution to unassumingly blaze a trail of clear and innovative thinking and reasoning, which provides members of the profession with the gift of a legacy of jurisprudence from an exceptional mind. Judicially, President Saunders is the author of a number of seminal judgments, not only in the appellate jurisdiction of this court, but also in its original jurisdiction. Immediately coming to mind in that latter jurisdiction is the case of Rock Hard Cement Limited and the state of Barbados, which was a judicial review application in which the court examined the doctrine of legitimate expectation generally and found the failure of the member state of Barbados to follow the procedure to notify Rock Hard Cement of the suspension of the common external tariff of 5% was contrary to good governance, the rule of law, and fundamental values and principles embedded in the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. In the appellate jurisdiction, in the case of Ward and Walsh, His Honor, the President, wrote a treatise on recusal, including not only the substantive law, but also the procedure to be adopted when seeking to have a judge recused. Needless to say, this judgment is of infinite value and guidance to all practitioners regionally. In respect of judicial education and training, prior to his elevation to the presidency, his name was synonymous with judicial education and training. Even after assuming office, the president has continued to vigorously support judicial education. He has written numerous articles inuring to the benefit of the legal profession regionally. One that comes to mind is the crafting of witness statements. His Honor is also a joint author of a number of important Caribbean legal publications, such as Fundamentals of the Caribbean Constitutional Law, and is the editor-in-chief of the Caribbean Civil Court Practice. Administratively, His Honor has brought an energy and culture of cooperation and a sense of common effort to the pipeline of the Caribbean Court of Justice, ensuring that all protocols are met and that matters are handled with an efficiency, thereby setting an example for regional courts to follow. As third president of the court, of this court, and like any good number three, he has laid the foundation for a good score. He will leave the Caribbean Court of Justice a much stronger institution. The Caribbean Court of Justice is now well respected regionally and internationally. So just as I tried on that occasion many years ago not to sacrifice quality in my submissions while still respecting the time frame given, today, faced with a far more onerous task and a far shorter timeline, I have done my best to achieve, in some small measure, the depth and quality of tribute deserving of an exceptional Caribbean jurist, a legal giant, as it were. Mr. President, on behalf of myself and on behalf of the judiciary of Barbados, we wish you well in your future endeavors and thank your family for sharing you generously with the region. Thank you.
Good morning or afternoon, everyone. Honourable judges and distinguished guests all, colleagues and friends, hope you're hearing me from Jamaica. It's a distinct honour to participate in this special sit-in on the eve of the retirement of President Saunders. I wish I was there in person, but as it turns out, I'm well represented at Queen's Hall today. The University of the West Indies is where President Saunders began his journey in law in 1972. It is at the UWI he penned some of his earliest thoughts on constitutional law. In March of 1975, he submitted his undergraduate Law and Society II thesis about Grenada's transition to independence under an authoritarian government and its implications for St. Vincent's pending move to independence. Having heard from Justice Barrow about his early years, I note that he interviewed Maurice Bishop, Bernard Core, and Alistair Hughes for this important early project as a 21-year-old. UWI is a place he oft returned to deliver important addresses, to receive an honorary degree, to teach, and as an oft-visitor to our classrooms. In my case, since 2004, the year after I started teaching constitutional law, and the beginning of what was for us decades of conversations about this field. Each time he comes, first-year students who have read his towering judgments come face to face with a judge who is unpretentious, warm, plain-speaking, respectful of others, open-minded, welcoming, and reflective in response to tough questions about his positions. One of my colleagues says a student mistook him for the president on one of his visits at Mona because he was wearing a suit that day, and the president, as usual, was not. President Saunders has not only, to use my words on an earlier occasion, refashioned our constitutional vernacular through his value-rich framings, he has also recast for many what an eminent judge looks like, sounds like, and how she or he behaves. I owe a debt of gratitude to my former colleague at the UWI and later Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, Sir Hugh Rawlins, who called early academic attention to one of his very early decisions in 1998, Carty and Rogers on parliamentary privilege. Sir Hugh declared that this case, quote, should be rescued from unreported obscurity and held forth as a beacon of enlightened judicial appreciation of our constitutions. That was the beginning. President Saunders is now without question one of the great Caribbean judges of the 21st century, and he is one of our constitutional law giants. It's not simply what he has said, it's what he's done and how. His legacy has been forged through work and dialogue with others, an idea that we have much to gain from, to use his words, or collective wisdom and experience. Moreover, his notion of justice as demanding respect for all, as requiring good governance and self-determination, an open-mindedness that looks inward and outwards. All of these things are faithful to who he is as a person and his leadership. He has eschewed tabulated legalism. Given that CARICOM states have declared in establishing the CCJ that they are, quote, convinced that the court will have a determinative role in the further development of Caribbean jurisprudence through the judicial process. Professor Kim Lane-Chapelle describes how a new court can establish its unique place in the political order by virtue of being the locus of principled, moral, intellectual decisions. She adds that, and to quote her, the person of the president can convey the intellectual and moral gravitas of the new court and allows the attribution of these principles to the institution. She goes further and she says a new court and its president, in the wake of a new old regime, must make space for themselves. They must assert themselves. To quote her, she says they must have sharp elbows to ensure that they can have a seat at the table. This he and his predecessor presidents have done. His type of transformative and value-laden constitutionalism that understands law, to quote him as his lessons from his UWI degree, that law is an instrument of social change, a tool that can enhance social progress in the Caribbean. This is an activist approach, not a reactive one. Activism is always controversial because it raises questions of judicial legitimacy, but it's important to put it in context. He has always offered an activist view with judicial humility. Across his decades of sustained dialogue and engagement with other judges, with lawyers, other branches of government, with, as our Mona Law tutor put it to me recently, a very clear and understandable communication with the people the court serves. He has recognized that judges must be humble when they're at the meeting place, to use his words, of law, politics, and society. As we all play a role, I think he strongly believes in creating, to borrow from his own constitution, a society so ordered as to express our recognition of the principles of democracy, free institutions, social justice, and equality before the law. If his transformational constitutionalism can sound incompatible with the region's imperfect constitutions that we were told 50 years ago were merely evolutionary, then we should reflect on his repeated call, especially in relation to savings law clauses, to re-evaluate the conventional accounts provided of our past, where, as Professor Carnegie had put it, we're at best being poets. His extrajudicial writings and speeches allude to the complexity of our project because, as I put it, we're still in the long durée of decolonization. Our successful older regional court is awkwardly grounded on a 1967 UK order in council. My own institution's constitution, as the Vice Chancellor recently pointed out, is a royal charter. And it's significant and fitting that today we're in the famous Queen's Hall where 63 years ago, in April of 1962, perhaps the most significant public discussions about our independence constitutions were held. And decades later, we're reminded that the Queen, the Crown, still has a prominent place in the life of our states and our republics. In closing, the President's legacy calls for humility in understanding that decolonization is still our work in progress. His legacy is a firmness in recognizing a role for the judiciary and the CCJ through legal interpretation in making sense of our constitutional commitments and values amidst our contradictions, fears, and uncertainties. I give thanks, particularly on behalf of the University of the West Indies, for his work as a judge, as a leader of our courts. We should honor his life's work by engaging with his work. I wish him quiet time with Marilyn and his family. And selfishly, I wish for continuing conversations, not only for me, but for many others with him. Thank you very much.
If it may please this honourable court on this sitting, I thank Madam Registrar for observing the two-page list of protocols. Permit me, though, to acknowledge the Honourable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Mrs. Saunders, and their family, as well as incoming President-designate of the Caribbean Court of Justice, the Honourable Justice Winston Anderson. As I indicated to the Honourable CARICOM Secretary General sitting next to me, so much has been said by this wonderful bench that perhaps the only thing left for me to do on behalf of my colleagues at the Caribbean Bar is to render tribute in song. Unfortunately, Mr. President, I cannot sing, and I suspect any utterances musically from me could adversely impact regional integration, as I am no Bob Marley, and I certainly am no David Rudder. But I am pleased and humbled on behalf of the 16 bar associations comprising the Organization of Commonwealth Caribbean Bar Associations for this opportunity to briefly address this special sitting, to acknowledge with gratitude the work and worth of President Adrian Saunders. I declare, without fear of contradiction, that President Saunders is, as you have heard, an excellent jurist, a quintessential Caribbean man with one of the sharpest legal minds. All this is cloaked in a personality characterized by humility, intellect, decency, and a respect for our humanity, our regional humanity. And I quickly observed that these wonderful characteristics can be difficult to maintain in persons achieving high office. Yet, President Saunders has done so with ease, dignity, and yes, as we have heard, a common touch. His time on the bench of the CCJ is filled with precedent making reasoned and clear judgments, all creating a body of Caribbean jurisprudence, our jurisprudence, that stands in equal measure, I submit, to any other apex court in the world. A body of jurisprudence made available to the world and has provided justice to the people, entities, and countries which seek justice from this apex Caribbean court. We will recall, and do recall, his leadership of the CCJ as such, and we feel unhesitatingly that the greatest testimony to his presidency is the fact that the Caribbean Court of Justice remains strong with a cadre of excellent judges ready to continue under the presidency of Justice Winston Anderson. Our CCJ remains strong, capably run, financially secure, and independent. Without a doubt, President Saunders has led the CCJ with distinction, serving not only as the court of original jurisdiction for the 12 contracting CARICOM nations, but as the final appellate court for 5 of those jurisdictions. OCBA, that I preside over, is grateful, Mr. President, and pledges to you and this court to continue our advocacy to ensure that the CCJ becomes the final appellate court for all 12 contracting CARICOM nations, with our immediate and urgent focus now on Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago. For these reasons, I'm pleased to announce, on behalf of OCBA, that in the coming weeks and at an appropriate occasion, President Adrian Saunders will be presented with the OCBA Award for his service to Caribbean jurisprudence, the rule of law, and the Caribbean Court of Justice. For those in attendance who may not know, the OCBA Award is the highest award granted by OCBA only to those who have made significant and lasting contributions to our regional jurisprudence. President Saunders stands amongst that small but illustrious group. Thank you, President. Although I've indicated my limitations in not being able to sing, do permit me, as I have composed this haiku, a haiku being a short Japanese poem in tribute to President Saunders, as follows. A strong, helping outstretched hand, considered guidance with care, service in action. Thank you. I now ask my colleagues from the 16 bar associations who are here with us today, whether presidents or members or former presidents, as I close, to stand. My colleagues who are here with me today, could you stand? Thank you, friends. Thank you. So on behalf of the 16 bar associations of Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, the Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, British Virgin Islands, Dominica, Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago, and the Turks and Caicos Islands, as well as OCBA, I say a collective thank you for a job well done in service to the CCJ. We urge you to continue your walk of service, as you have so much more to offer, particularly to the younger members of our legal profession who could benefit from your legal pedagogy and the examples of your humanity, humility, and ethics. This will serve as a beacon to guide us all on the long and winding road, which is the practice of law in all forms. So walk good, Mr. President, and now may you enjoy some well-deserved rest, as well as the best and true desires of your heart. I pray that these submissions find favor with this distinguished bench. If it so please you, Your Honors. Thank you.
We pay tribute today to Justice Adrian Saunders, who retires as President of the Caribbean Court of Justice. He has been at the CCJ since the first judges were appointed in 2005, after having already served between 1996 and 2005 as a judge and acting Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. He became President in 2018. His departure marks the culmination of a remarkably distinguished career that has helped shape the landscape of Caribbean jurisprudence. In a 3-minute tribute, it is impossible to isolate his impact with reference to case law. A search of the CCJ's database reveals that he has sat on some 315 judgments. A few of them, he delivered a very powerful joint judgment in the Attorney General and Joseph and Boyce with then President Michael de la Bastille in the early days of the CCJ. a case dealing with the death penalty, which judgment and reasoning have stood the test of time and helped lay the foundation for strong, independent thinking coming out of our own jurisprudence. Many years later, he delivered a judgment in Raman, the Attorney General of Guyana, where he had to lend authoritative guidance to an emerging political crisis in Guyana concerning the validity of a no-confidence motion in the sitting government. His judgment was clear, erudite, and clinical, understandable to the average citizen, and completely unfettered by political concerns. Other landmark cases on which he has sat include, among others, Shannick Myrie and Barbados, the Maya Leaders Alliance case, and Ventos and the Chief Elections Officer of Barbados. He has also presided over several cases in the CCJ's original jurisdiction, including, among others, those concerning the application and classification of the common external tariff on cement, in some of which cases I led the team for one of the parties. Other than his command of the law, what stood out for me was that President Saunders was always polite, soft-spoken, never disrespectful, asked probing questions, and yet allowing counsel the opportunity to develop her own arguments. He was witty and took complete control of his courtroom without needing to be aggressive in demeanor. His judgments have been marked by clarity, depth, and compassion, underscoring his belief that law is not merely a set of rules, but a tool for societal progress. His leadership was instrumental in strengthening the CCJ's role as both a final appellate court and, in its original jurisdiction, an interpreter of the Caribbean's integration agreements. He championed initiatives to ensure that justice was accessible and equitable for all, regardless of social standing or geographical location. His advocacy for modernization within the court system introduced technological advancements that streamlined processes, leading the charge to improve the administration of justice throughout the Caribbean, thereby making justice for Caribbean peoples more accessible, efficient, and transparent. His impact off the bench is equally notable. He has co-authored one of the most authoritative texts on Caribbean constitutional law, that is to say, Fundamentals of Caribbean Constitutional Law, with co-authors Tracy Robinson and Arif Balkan, which has become a widely cited reference text in a very short space of time. He has delivered countless lectures, speeches, and interviews in which he has been pains to point out, A, the independence of the CCJ from political interference, B, the ability of the CCJ through our own jurists to develop jurisprudence that is just as strong as anything from any other jurisdiction, and C, the need for us, as a Caribbean people, to take control of our identity. Adrian Saunders' retirement is an occasion to celebrate a lifetime of dedication and achievement. It is a time to reflect on the profound impact he has had on the Caribbean and to express gratitude for his service. In honoring Adrian Saunders, we pay tribute to a Caribbean man whose career embodies the ideals of excellence, integrity, and humanity. His contributions have transcended borders, leaving an enduring imprint on the Caribbean and beyond. May his retirement be as impactful and fulfilling as his illustrious career, and may his legacy remain a cornerstone of justice for generations to come. Thank you.
This is a moment of reflection for me as I join you today to bid farewell to President Saunders, who has been a towering figure in our regional judicial history. We remember that in the early 1970s, you were one of a few trailblazers who were an inspiration to many of us as you all embarked on the study of law in the early years of the law faculty at Cave Hill, UWI, initiating the training of lawyers in the Caribbean region. I am told that your journey continued through 19 years of a varied and successful private practice, which unquestionably laid a solid foundation for the judicial career which started in our Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court in 1996 and then continued in 2018 in the Caribbean Court of Justice. After nearly 30 years of unwavering service, marked by integrity, wisdom, and a deep commitment to justice, you are now stepping down from the bench. While we celebrate the closing chapter of an era, one defined by legal excellence, principled leadership, and a relentless pursuit of fairness, I am sure that you are looking forward to the start of a new chapter in a life which thus far has been well spent. Your career has been a masterclass in judicial dignity, energy, and courage. From your earliest days as a young lawyer, learning your craft, and then rising through the ranks of the judiciary, you have brought to the courtroom not only a brilliant legal mind, but also the kind of empathy and humanity that reminds us that justice is not merely about the law, but is essentially about people. My experience working with you on the RJLSC over the past nearly 6 years has been very positive. I have particularly appreciated your willingness to listen, your ability to build consensus while providing guidance from your experience and knowledge, which has benefited all of us who have been on the RJLSC. But beyond the court and the meeting rooms, you have worked tirelessly by your own actions and by your strong support for modernizing the judiciary, promoting access to justice, and supporting judicial independence, all of which efforts have left an indelible mark on our legal system and on all of us privileged to work within it. We celebrate today not just a career, but a legacy that will endure in the law books, in the judgments, and in the lives of the countless people whose futures have been shaped by your decisions. President Saunders, as you move into retirement, may you find the peace and fulfillment that you have so selflessly secured for others over the years. Whether it is time spent with family, writing, mentoring, or simply enjoying a well-earned break from the pressure you have lived with over many years, you should be assured that your invaluable contributions will not be forgotten and are deeply appreciated. Thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and your unwavering dedication to justice. May your next chapter be as impactful as the one you so nobly closed today. Thank you.
Very pleasant good afternoon to everyone. I'd like to adopt the established protocols. My name is Sheldon Cambridge. I have had the honor and pleasure of being assigned to Justice Saunders for the past 20 years. Yep, 20 years. So, don't clap yet. That would make me the bag man. I know where all these skeletons berries and where the jewelry are headed. But we can't talk about that. Come say, I just have a little bit of time, so we can't talk about that. What I would like to talk about is Justice Saunders, the person. Justice Saunders, the loving father and husband. Justice Saunders, who loves his daughter-in-law and who in turn call him dad. Justice Saunders with the good sense of humor, who makes it easier to get along with him. About 3 or 4 months into being assigned to him, I organized his lunch, brought it up for him. I was about to go get mine. Phone rings, Justice Saunders. Hey, sir. He said, hey, Sheldon, how is looking like pork, sir? I said, yes, sir. I organized a nice pork chop, some sauteed provisions, grilled veg, pigeon peas, and all you say like avocado. He said, but Sheldon, I still eat pork, you know. I've never seen him sad. Every time he would be down, he'd say, you okay, sir? He'd reply with, yeah, man, yeah, man. Never really seen him angry. I've been in positions with him where I angry and he just calmly discussing and sorting it out. But without a doubt, the happiest I've ever seen him is when he would tell me, oh wait, I didn't tell you. Justice Saunders' most recent addition to his family is his grandson, Thomas Adrian Saunders, fondly called Tommy Boy, Tommy, Tom. 20 years I've known Justice Saunders. I've never known Justice Saunders so greedy for baby, you know. From the time Tommy come downstairs, let me hold him, give me him. Sometimes they put on Tommy in a rocker. Tommy have an up-to-date rocker. Tommy rocks and thing moving over Tommy head. They put on Tommy in the rocker to make a battle. Time they come back, Justice Saunders go on with Tommy. He and Tommy by the fish pond. He and Tommy walking down the road. But that just goes to show the love and care he has for his grandson. That love and care expands to people he doesn't even know. I went to pick him up by the airport that evening. While signing in the book, the security asked, "Where's the other gentleman who was driving this van?" I was like, "Other gentleman?" He said, "No other gentleman who's driving the van." She said, "Yes, it's one other gentleman who's driving the van." She turns to the back of the book and our vehicle number is written down. She goes on to tell me she wasn't feeling well that day. She was sick. He came, asked what I'm telling her. She told her she's not feeling well. She thinks she's coming down with the flu. He leaves, goes and buy tablets, a cough medicine, a bottle of water, comes back and says, "Well, yeah, take this. Hope you feel better soon." She says, "Boy," and that touched me because, people don't do them things for you just so. We said people you don't know. I was like, yeah, that is Justice Saunders for you. With that being said, I'd like to leave you 3 gems he left with me. In 2008, the court had an educational program where we were going out to the Caribbean, telling people about the court, what the court does, and stuff like that. So you could ask the judges questions, stuff like that. It was a real buzz around the court, The who is who, everybody the best in every department, they go in. We came in the morning, the central on duty said, the IT manager wanted to see it. The IT manager at that time was Miss Cross. Especially good afternoon to Miss Cross too, because Miss Cross is the one who paired us together. She said, "Well, 2 of you get along, but it's only for 8 days. Don't get comfortable. It's the longest 8 days ever." So I set him up. I come back down. She tells me, "Well, you've been chosen to go Belize, and this is what we're doing. We leave in that time." So I leave in the office happy, like Papi, about to go back upstairs and tell him, "Well, I get chosen to go." So I come out of office, take a sharp left, run into Employee Fred. Employee Fred says, "Hey, how are you going?" I say, "Hey, good." He said, "I hear you're going Belize." I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, Tom could not go, so they pick you." So, I started to feel that way. Instead of going by him, I go and do my chores, then I go back up. I say, "Sir, I have something to talk to you about." Now, Justice Saunders, once from time I tell him that, he stops what he's doing and turns, gives me his undivided attention. So for me, that means he can't go upstairs with nothing small. He also has laughed, as if to say, "Boy, you have plenty to learn. Oh boy, you have a long way to go." So I tell him what happened, I tell him how I feel. He laughed. He said, "All right, there are 2 ways you can look at this. You can say, boy, they didn't pick me, so I'm not going away." Or you can take the opportunity and go and show them why they should have picked you first. I said, that's interesting. So I went, and I ended up being a part of the educational program until its closure. We were running late to go by the airport a morning. When we reached by the airport, now we realized we're plenty late. Counter almost closed up. So we talking to the attendant, asking her, "Well, trying to get on the flight." She said, "Well, no, the counter closed up. Is there anything you could do to help us?" She said, "All right, well, let me talk to the supervisor." The supervisor comes, we tell him the situation. He's like, "Well, the airport," and goes on. So I hold in the bag. I say, "Well, we leaving now. Justice Saunders there. I don't know why he's still waiting here." He listen. The supervisor eventually said, "How many documents? Let me see if I can help you." Goes, punches her and say, "Well, go fast to the flight there. Don't make no more stops." So why we go? I say, "That didn't go the way I said to go. Why didn't leave?" He said, "I didn't want to leave. I want to go on the flight. If I leave, I would not get to go on the flight." In life, Sheldon, you must pick your battles wisely. It makes no sense wasting time and energy fighting battles you know you can't win. Pick the battles you know you could win, or the ones you have the highest percentage of winning. I was like, okay, that one nice too. I was stored out. Just before we go to work in the morning, he and Mrs. have a little disagreement. Small thing. He ends the disagreement by saying, "Okay, love, we'll do that. I go on, "Love you." Mrs. in turn says, "Love you too." come in the car, we drive out. I said, "So you know I was right?" He said, "Yeah, I know I was right. But happy wife, happy life." 20 years down the road, I'm very pleased to tell you, I'm still making the most of the opportunities presented to me. I'm choosing my battles wisely. I still lost in some of the ones that are the highest percentage I won, and I don't know what's going on there. The third one I'm still working on. I grasp certain concepts, but I'm still working on it. When we met in 2005, there wasn't much I could say. Only I've been assigned to Justice Saunders, who is a judge from St. Vincent. 2 decades down, sir, I'm very proud to say, all the best in your future endeavors, Justice Saunders, sir. My principal, my mentor, my friend.
I have to confess to being completely overwhelmed by this outpouring of support from friends, colleagues, well-wishers, and past and current staff with whom I've had the great privilege to work. In particular, I'm extremely touched by the tributes that have been expressed, and I thank you all for making this day such a memorable one. One of the persons who I just happened to see and who I'm not sure was mentioned in the protocol list was my dear friend Patrick Robinson, the former president of the International Criminal Tribunal of Yugoslavia, and the recently retired judge of the International Court of Justice. Thank you so much, Patrick. Your presence means a lot to me. The remarks I've prepared can do no justice to the deep emotions that I'm experiencing at this time. Actually, when I was advised that these proceedings were going to be held at this very spacious venue, I cringed because I know the enormous effort entailed in organizing an activity of this nature at a time when our staff are already stretched with myriad 20th anniversary commemorations. Nevertheless, I cannot thank you all enough for celebrating with me my judicial career in this fashion. In particular, I express my gratitude to all those who spoke today, to Justice Anderson for chairing these proceedings and for his very warm words, to those who traveled from overseas to be here, and also those who, over the last few weeks, have sent me messages of solidarity. I will forever treasure all the very generous sentiments expressed. On occasions like this, I remember Thomas Saunders, not the 4-month-old baby, my father. He used to be a primary school teacher, a career he commenced at the tender age of 14. Back then, some schools employed what they called pupil teachers. You both taught, sometimes persons older than you, and you were also trained. By dint of hard work, self-study, an extremely curious mind, and a wonderful wife who, like him, was an ardent believer in public service, he progressed through the ranks and was later elected president of the St. Vincent Teachers Association. In 1954, the year he was born, he publicly called the attention of the governor to the deplorable salaries and working conditions of the teachers. After exhausting all means of reasonable redress, the association went on a 3-day strike, a historic first in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The colonial authorities grudgingly addressed some of the concerns of the teachers, but they adopted punitive measures against their leader. My father was removed from his post as headmaster of a newly built prestige school in Kingstown and transferred, some might say banished, to a rural area, a rural school. The period before, during, and just after the strike was an extremely stressful time for my mother. Later in life, she told me that her breast milk dried up entirely, and she was forced to put me prematurely on formula. Some of the speakers today have alluded to my passion for justice, for fairness, for democracy, for decolonization, for self-determination. I would like to think that some of this comes from the example and experiences of my parents. But naturally, there have also been other influences. I got into law by pure happenstance and good fortune. In my sixth form at secondary school, I desired to continue my studies at a tertiary level, but needed financial assistance to do so. The Canadian government was offering scholarships to the University of West Indies. Before you could qualify, for one, you naturally needed to apply and to indicate your proposed course of study. Beyond desiring to leave St. Vincent to study something, somewhere, I had no clue what I wanted to do with myself. Law was the farthest thing from my mind. I vaguely recall my mother saying that her father, an extremely devout Roman Catholic, often mused that there were no lawyers in heaven. When I applied for the Canadian scholarship, the UE resident tutor noticed that I had left blank the field on the form that required the applicant to stipulate a course of study. When he questioned me, I told him I didn't know what to put. He said, well, why don't you put down law? They've just started a law faculty in Barbados. I shrugged and said, fine, put that down. I believe Grandpa would have forgiven me. He had long since passed on, and I would like to think that among the people he came across in the great beyond, not a few were lawyers. Of all the lecturers I encountered at Cave-Hill, the one who made the greatest impression on me was Telford Georges. Only 6 or 7 of us students signed up for a novel course specifically devised by him and aptly called Citizen and the State. We had Professor Georges all to ourselves for a whole year. The course was a mixture of administrative, human rights, and constitutional law. Professor Georges didn't teach in the traditional way. He just seemed to regale our small group with interesting stories and engaged us in animated conversations about how the compact between the citizen and the state should play out. This course and the way it was taught made a lasting impression on me. On completion of my legal studies, after a brief stint with Mr. Baylis Frederick, a lawyer old enough to be my father, I went into private practice as a sole practitioner. Initially, it was extremely rough. Marilyn sometimes paid the secretary and the utilities. But after 19 years, although I was earning good money at the time from a huge and ever-growing clientele, something seemed missing. I confided to a colleague that I wouldn't mind being a judge someday, and that sentiment got back to the Chief Justice. I may have been the last judge in the OECS selected for a permanent appointment on the bench by the proverbial tap on the shoulder. I still remember like it was yesterday, the hot August afternoon in 1996, when I returned to my chambers dog-tired from a grueling day, and my secretary said to me, "Some man named Dennis Byron called for you." He didn't say what he wanted. Within the space of a few weeks, my judicial career had commenced in Montserrat. I was completely undaunted by the fact that a terrible volcano was threatening to devastate the island. Life has been exceptionally good to me throughout the ensuing years. When I joined the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, Sir Dennis was just about to shake up that court by introducing a series of profound reform initiatives. I took to them like a duck to water. Modern civil procedure rules, active case management, appropriate dispute resolution methods such as mediation, a judicial code of ethics, marrying modern information technology to court processes, developing a separate cadre of court personnel focused only on court management, judicial education, a transparent judicial appointments process, and the list goes on and on. He was the architect, and he delegated to me a lead role in the implementation of these initiatives. Similar processes were also underway in Trinidad and Tobago under Chief Justice de Labastide. And when I was appointed to the CCJ in 2005, I naturally enjoyed with him a similarly close and collegial relationship. Professor Tracy Robinson, from whom we heard, has made the point, which never occurred to me until she said it, that there has been no other institution or initiative in the Caribbean, perhaps, that has been more studied, debated, and written about in the Caribbean Court of Justice, both regionally and internationally. Neither the federal experiment nor independence, or for that matter republicanism, gained the same kind of traction. The heads of government of CARICOM can be rightly proud of this unique institution they have fashioned. And I pause here to recognize Her Excellency, the Secretary General, Dr. Carla Barnett. Your presence today, Your Excellency, is a solid indication of that pride which CARICOM takes in the CCJ and of the role the court has played over the last 2 decades in anchoring the community in the rule of law. There are other indications. This is an international, not a domestic court. Our only assets to enforce our judgments are the trust and confidence reposed in the court by the governments and the people of the region. If you wish to know the true opinion of CARICOM states about the Caribbean Court of Justice, don't count the number of states that have acceded to the appellate jurisdiction. That is pure politics, untidy, disappointing, and sometimes frustrating politics. Look instead at the respect accorded by all CARICOM states to the judgments of the court. Look at the timely and full compliance with those judgments. Look at the regard with which they have for the intimations of the court. The CCJ is by no means perfect, but if over the last 20 years the court had failed any of the severe challenges placed before it, we would certainly have heard it loud and clear again and again. We haven't. Instead, Caribbean detractors base their reluctance to embrace their own court by repeating groundless fears, by making assertions that have zero evidence to support them, and by doing what they never do to the British court, that is, to unfairly attribute to the CCJ the imperfections of the domestic justice sector. And they do so as if those imperfections do not exist also in the United Kingdom's trial courts. History will not treat this kindly. I wish gratefully to acknowledge the presence of several regional heads of judiciary on this occasion. I am humbled by your presence here today. 9 years with the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court and 20 with this court, including 16 with CAJO, have allowed me to work in or closely with judicial officers of every single Commonwealth Caribbean country. I have also had occasion to interact and share discussion panels with judges from various parts of the world. My encounters and experiences have reconfirmed for me that the best judges in the Caribbean are as good as the best judges anywhere else on the planet. we fail to appreciate this at our own peril. Among the staff and colleagues who have made my professional life easier and kept me grounded, it is difficult and probably unwise to begin singling out anyone. But it would be absolutely remiss of me if I failed specifically to mention Ms. Deborah Gibbs and Mr. Sheldon Cambridge. Over the last 20 years, they have faithfully always been there with me and for me. I have truly treasured my personal and professional relationship with them. They're like family. I'm going to be severely challenged to organize my life without taking for granted their efficient assistance and the considerate manner in which they've assisted me. Thank you so much, Deborah and Sheldon. I demit office convinced that the CCJ ship is in fine shape and good hands. The court has grown tremendously from a mere idea to a formidable institution recognized internationally for its commitment to excellence. My tenure has not been exceptional. It is merely built on the superb foundation established by my predecessors, Justices de Labastide and Sir Dennis Byron. It has been built on the work of the first CEA, Master Christian Morris Allen. It's been built on the work of successive registrars like Ms. Paula Pear and Justice Jackie Graham, who is here with us today. It has been built by the very hard work of all the supporting staff. I take this opportunity now publicly to congratulate Justice Anderson on your impending appointment as President. I have no doubt whatsoever that under your leadership, the court will grow from strength to strength. I also acknowledge the deep and abiding support I have received, particularly since I became president, from all the judges of the court. Thank you so much for your support and loyalty. We cannot underestimate the contribution which has been made to the success of the court by the commissioners of the Regional Judicial and Legal Services Commission. I wish to thank current and past commissioners for their expertise, their professionalism, and their profound dedication to the court. They have demonstrated an unyielding commitment to efficiency, accountability, and good governance. From time to time, I've asked myself, what is it that motivates them to volunteer the enormous amount of time and care and effort they do on such a sustained basis? I sense that the answer to this is no different from that which motivates our judges, our staff, and our other stakeholders. We all are keenly aware that the advancement of human rights, democracy, self-determination, and the rule of law in the Caribbean are inextricably linked to the success of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Our time and effort are an investment in our own environment, in our future, and the future of the Caribbean, which will be inhabited by our children and our children's children. Finally, I'd like to give thanks to my wife, Marilyn, and to our two sons, Yuri and Yannick, and Yuri's wife, and Yannick's better half. My judicial career was built on the several tremendous sacrifices they've incurred for my sake. Without your unwavering support at every turn, my career would not have been what it was. And 4 months ago, Yuri and Suella gave me the most precious retirement gift, a son named Thomas. Colleagues, friends, it has been a long morning and I've exceeded my time. I think we do have some refreshments to be served. And so once again, I thank you all most sincerely for your attention, for your presence, and for your exceedingly complimentary sentiments. Thank you one and all.
All rise.